Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Brokerpreneur podcast. I'm here with Dr. Matt Vice.
What?
I'm Dr. Ben Spears, the ambassador Flo. I'm here with the big guy as usual. How's it going, Matt?
Another day in paradise, man. Just we had a great weekend. We've had a busy morning already, which you and I both love. We've got an incredible guest on. What could be better and more right in the world than being able to live the dream of doing what you want to do, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now this our guest that we're bringing on, I'm gonna introduce him in just a second. Our guest that we're bringing on, has an amazing skill.
Oh yeah,
right. You just an amazing talent and skill, and he's an expert at what he does. It's kind of scary.
It is a touch scary.
It's a little bit scary what he does.
I'm
a little bit scary, right?
I'm a little worried at this point, right?
Yeah, and so we're going to bring him on. I'm going to bring him on, facial analyst expert Joseph McGuire. He is in Ireland, so he's looks like five hours ahead of us,
right?
And I'll tell you, it's one of those things, Joseph, and this is how we're going to bring this on. It's scary that, you can read our faces, but it's also a little bit scary that, you have to look at Matt and I's faces every now and then.
Right.
and analyze. How are you going to analyze this?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm so sorry. How you doing?
I'm very well indeed. It's an absolute pleasure to see you, gentlemen. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, wonderful.
So hang on. I got to jump in. I got to cut Ben off. Everybody knows that's what I got to do, right? That's part of my MO. So he talked to you a while back, and right after you just kind of got through doing the facial analysis with him, and he was like, I can't wait for you to do this. He said he was so spot on and so accurate. He's like, I just want to get some insight for this, and from a recruiting standpoint, I think this is going to be excellent for any broker that's listening, for them to get a grip on how they might be able to leverage information that's there that they're not even thinking about touching. Right.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about exactly what you do.
Okay, I primarily work with an ancient Chinese tradition, which is literally reading people's faces. It's a tradition that's been used over the last 3,000 years or so. The documentation goes back that far. It's been used in Chinese medicine, and I actually originally learned it as a diagnostic tool, but it's been used in Chinese business and politics over that extended period of time. And the basic understanding is that our static facial features, without moving a muscle, reveal a huge amount of information about our personality, behavior style, how we communicate, both in terms of how we receive and process information and communicate externally, stress triggers and responses, parental influences, how we behave in public as opposed to how we behave in private, and a lot more besides.
So cool.
Yeah. And I was reading a little bit, on your website, and with it, being kind of, in ancient Chinese art, it was called, what was it called? Just in case other people want to look, it's like mind shang.
Yeah. My partner's actually Chinese, and I still can't get the pronunciation exactly right. So I'm probably going to offend half the population of the planet, but it's something like Mian Shung.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I'm from Kentucky.
So get ready for the butchering.
So,
and I'm from Georgia. We don't stand a chance on this end.
Perfect. So I definitely want to kind of show, everyone. A lot of times, we'll ask, how did you get into that? And, I do want to get a little bit of a backstory, but I kind of want to show everyone, kind of what this is about. And I'm going to put Matt on the spot with you.
Here we go.
I will let you know that when, because you're talking about, your static face shows a lot about you. Matt's static face is his happy face and his mad face.
It's all the same.
It's all the same. It's, I smile all the time. It's a static face.
I'm smiling right now.
He's smiling right now. Exuberant. But yeah, I would absolutely love it if you could kind of show everyone, kind of what you do, and then we'll get right into like how they can use this from a recruiting standpoint, and looking at people across the desk and
improving their life, right? I mean, it gives them a chance to improve their life because they're communicating more effectively with the people around them, I would think. Yeah.
Do I need to zoom really close into
No.
I'd like
no,
to.
And I can actually tell a lot from people's LinkedIn photos. So like I'll have clients who send me like almost like thumbnail pictures from LinkedIn, and even those are very revealing.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So just a couple of things to preface it. I'm kind of like Columbo, Lieutenant Columbo. There's always one more thing. So when I get on a roll, there's always one more thing. And one other thing is that I'm doing my Columbo thing there, but I've also done a lot of training with like former FBI trainers as well, and sort of body language analysis, interrogation, and negotiation and stuff like that. So I add a lot of other stuff to my skill set. So it's not, at this stage, it's not just looking at the static facial features, but just getting specifically to Matt here. There are a number of things that jump out at me, even though they're not strictly speaking, obviously on the ears, on the face, or that the ears are very important. And Matt has a wonderful set of ears. And the fact that they're as long as they are tell me that for Matt, long-term thinking is very important, long-term strategy. So if you invest in a project, or your time and your energy, or if you invest money, you're thinking long-term. That's the first thing. The second thing is the height of the ears is just a little bit below the level of the eyebrows. So what that tells me is you do not like to be rushed into making important decisions. You like to take time. And if somebody tries to push you hard, you may agree, but you'll come back and say, I've been thinking.
Yeah.
And we need to take another look.
Right on two of those. So batting thousands so far.
Okay. And just like I said, there's always one more thing, but I'm looking at your forehead, and you at one stage when you guys were talking, you turned your head to the side, and I could see your forehead kind of curves back a little. So that tells me you absorb and process information very quickly. So if somebody's presenting an idea, a project, what have you, anything like that to you, they need to move it. They need to move it along quickly, because you're automatically thinking ahead. Okay, how can I use this? How does this work? And if they move it really slowly, they lose your interest and your attention very, very quickly. And you're not only absorbing the information, you're thinking in terms of, okay, how do I apply this? Where does it apply? How can I change it to do something else with it? Or I can see another context. So that's the way your mind works. So when the forehead curves back like that, and it's so nicely rounded at the top, it tells you that that's how you need to communicate very clearly with the person, and you need to take into account that their imagination is very, very active. So sometimes, and because you also have a high forehead, you have the capacity to absorb information, be thinking about, oh yeah, I could use it there, and be listening at the same time. Mm-hmm. And that's a pretty unusual talent.
So that's 3. Still at 1,000.
You're also very. I would describe you as very pragmatic. Your eyebrows, especially your right eyebrow, and the right side of the individual face reveals the public persona. The left side reveals the private persona, and your right eyebrow is quite straight. So again, it tells me when somebody is presenting information to you, it should be presented in a very logical, linear fashion. Because if they present it in a very abstract way, again, they lose your attention very quickly, and you will automatically be looking for the holes. You have a very good instinct, and that's indicated by the pronounced orbital ridge here above the eyebrows, that you have a very practical instinct for what will and what won't work. And your experience has also been honed by disappointment. We all experience disappointment in different ways, but you have been influenced by the fact that things haven't always worked the way you wanted, and that stands to you now in terms of helping you make wise decisions.
Okay, so that's 4. So far you're super spot on. But before we go any farther with this, Ben, does that sound right?
I only have one. So, I know you're saying like, he's got, he's good at analyzing things, right? And you told me like I have really good intuition. Mm-hmm. Would you say I'm more right than Matt more often? Get that on recording, or we can work on that later.
Yeah.
Checks in the mail.
Indeed, indeed.
I'll take your non-response as a no. Well done, Joseph. Well done.
Well, if I were a US citizen, I'd probably take the fifth.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. No, that is so spot on and so accurate. I absolutely love that. So I like how you pulled it all from the way that we look, right? Because that's what facial analysis, of course, is all about. But so how does someone that doesn't have a strong background in this, like a broker who's like, okay, you've got my interest peaked here, how did they start learning this? Right? Is it something that's going to take them 5 years to learn, to figure it all out? Do they have to study 8 hours a day? You've been doing this for a very long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so how does somebody kind of get be able to get a cursory understanding of this? How could they get started with being able to leverage this in their recruiting appointments and just their coaching that they're doing with people, their conversations in general? How would they get running with that?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. The reality is we've all been doing this for a long time. We just don't tend to realize we're doing it. And most of us have been trained to operate from here rather than bringing in the gut and the heart. Like in my training, I talk a lot about the three brains. Neuroscience has demonstrated that we actually have three brains: one in the gut, the enteric brain; one in the heart, the cardiac brain, and then we have the cephalic brain here. And most of the time we're operating from here rather than integrating the three. And we need to bring the three back. So when we get a gut feeling about something, it's important to pay attention to it. And most of us, even if we're not really paying attention, will have some gut sensation about anybody we meet. So when we're talking about a prospective employee, a prospective client, pay attention to those gut signals. Then in terms of the practicalities, in terms of the observational bit, you can learn the basics pretty quickly. Like, for example, I talked about your eyebrows. If the eyebrows are essentially straight, and the eyebrows, like even when people have been wearing masks for the last couple of years, the fact that I could see the upper third or whatever of the face was still revealing a huge amount of information. And the eyebrows have been increasingly recognized, even in modern research, as being important for our communication. So if we look at somebody's eyebrows, and this applies to women as well as men, and even when women, sculpt their eyebrows, shall we say, if the eyebrows are essentially straight across, this person processes information in a very logical manner, essentially. If the eyebrows are more curved, then when we meet the person, it's important to them that we connect with them as a person first, not simply in business terms.
Oh, cool.
That's interesting. I'm looking at my eyebrows as you're saying these things. They're like this straight line.
Like Bert and Ernie over here. We got to
don't connect with me. Give me that info.
Yeah, so they're very simple things. If in terms of body language, I mean, there's so many different aspects to it. But if you're talking to somebody and the eyebrows come down, they've stopped listening.
Yeah,
they've stopped listening. So you notice that, and it's a very clear message: shut up, let them speak.
Right.
And whether you ask them a question or whether you just literally shut up and zip it and wait for them to speak, they've got something that needs to come out.
I love it.
But there are a couple of very quick basic things, but you can learn the basics quickly.
Yeah, that's so good. So from a broker and an agent standpoint, so now let's take it a little bit farther, one step farther. Let's say that they've already met the person, they've had some conversations with them, they've hired the person. How do they do a facial analysis to keep the person, to retain them, to help them feel more comfortable staying there? Because when you first meet someone, right, you're getting that first look. But after you've talked to them a bunch of times, is there like a pattern to what you should look for in what they're saying? Is there information that you're like, okay, they raised their eyebrows this time, and the next time I talked to them, they did it, and the next time, I mean, does that mean something different, or is it all the same thing, or does it all build on it, or do you look for repetition of things? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, a few interesting questions in there. Yeah. Okay. when we become accustomed to engaging with somebody, we even if we're just reasonably observant, we notice what their regular patterns of body language are and how they express themselves, how they express the language they use as well. So it's useful to spend time with somebody in casual conversation, even if it's a few minutes at a time, and you just see what's normal for them. So, for example, I'm primarily left-handed. If I pick up a cup, I'll pick it up in my left hand. Observe something like that. Is somebody primarily right or left-handed? If they start to be so if I'm really expressing myself emotionally, you'll see my left hand moving a lot. If I, on the other hand, become really excited or appear to be excited, appear to be expressive, and I start gesticulating a lot with my right hand, it's probably something off. So pay attention to what's the dominant hand. And if they're expressive, that's the one they're going to be. If they're genuinely expressive, that's the one they're likely to be moving. That's one obvious thing. One of the important things I've had to learn about myself, because really what I'm about is helping people build exceptional relationships in both their personal and their professional lives. And one of the things I had to realize, it took me a long time to realize it actually, was that it was one thing for me to be able to understand other people, but I didn't necessarily understand how well I was coming across.
Yep.
And that's really important. So it's not just about observing our client, our employee, our broker, etc. Part of it is how we communicate. So one of the first things and most important things, unless there's a source of major tension, is to always greet them with a smile.
Yeah.
And if they don't respond with a smile, just, okay, is there something up here? And ask them, be upfront, ask them the question. If they do respond with a smile, it tells you there's that potential for harmony, and that's professional harmony as well as just the relationship in general. If you're talking with them and they're moving back in the chair, or they're moving away, or they're turning their body away, and it's fairly basic stuff, but if they're doing that, they're not really engaged.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Right.
You don't know the reason, but they're not necessarily engaged. Even if they're doing this, it shows you they are paying attention.
Right.
Like you guys are sitting with your arms folded there on the desk, and there's a common misconception that means people are closed, people are being defensive. It doesn't actually mean that. It could mean many things, but most recent research I've come across in body language says that it actually syncs both right and left hemispheres of the brain when our arms are folded like that. So again, if somebody's arms are folded, they're actually paying attention. They're not distracting.
He's just leaning on the table, but I'm thinking both sides of my brain. I'm hearing you, Joseph.
I'm thinking about what I'm going to put in my gut brain here in about an hour. I'm just joking.
So that's so cool, because you do hear that a lot. You hear people say you cross their arms, they've closed down, they've shut off, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And absolutely, I think that there's probably times that's the case. But I also know times that I'm doing exactly that I cross my arms, and, a lot of times I'll go like this, right? And so, I catch myself doing that. I've got my arms crossed and my hand on my chin for the people that are just in podcast land. And I've got my arms crossed and I've got my hand on my chin, and I know that I'm not shutting down from it, right? But the line of thinking is that because you're crossing something, you're shutting it down. It makes so much more sense to say that you're trying to engage both sides of your brain.
Yeah, close. Hey guys, this podcast is powered by Prospect Boomerang.
We all know broker owners struggle with profitability. Prospect Boomerang compounds your profits by recruiting the best agents to your brokerage.
For consistent growth, visit prospectboomerang.com. In that circuit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's so cool.
And there's so many different aspects to the questions you just asked a couple of minutes ago there. But one other thing to pay attention to is people's blink rate. If people are relaxed, the blink rate tends to be quite slow. But if it speeds up, it's like normally our blink rate is somewhere between usually about eight times a minute. We blink about 8 times a minute. But if it becomes a lot faster than that, anything up to 20 or more, somebody is really stressed about something. So again, that's a kind of across the board observation. But if somebody's blink rate really speeds up, there's something in the conversation, or there's something that's just literally just happened that they are pretty stressed about. So you need to check it out.
Or you said blink rate, because as soon as you said blink rate, I started blinking, and I blinked like 94 times in 8 seconds. So it could be that whole unconscious suggestion.
Don't mention you're
And
counting
don't
their
yawn.
blinks.
Don't yawn.
Yeah, what's the difference? What's the difference with that? Why is it when I yawn, Matt yawns, when Matt yawns, I yawn? And same thing with everybody.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that transmits. Yeah.
Is that like a smile? See, I can smile at Matt, and he does not smile back.
I'm smiling.
But I can yawn at Matt, and he yawns back.
Well, it is one of those things. If we smile at somebody, it does trigger an internal response, even if it's not apparent externally. And smiling gives people a message, an unspoken message, that we're willing to engage with them, and we're willing to engage positively. The one thing to observe is whether it's a real smile, like what we call the full Duchenne smile, where the eyes narrow and the eyes kind of crinkle. If the smile doesn't reach the eyes, pay attention.
Yeah, it's not a real smile. Oh, that's cool too.
Yeah. So that's a lot with being a broker and kind of looking at an agent, during an interview and say, okay, I'm looking at their blink rate. I'm checking out their eyebrows. If I smile, are they truly smiling back? Are their arms crossed? Right. Some amazing nuggets that I'm so grateful for. Now we don't want to like manipulate and trick people, but what I'm getting at here is, let's say, gosh, you come into the office, you've got an interview with an agent, you're the broker, and I don't know, you went to get a coffee today and they were out of coffee. They're like, I'm sorry, we're out of coffee. You can have orange juice. You're like, I hate orange juice. And then, you step out of your car and you step into a puddle and your shoes are soaked up to your ankles or something like that. Then you come into that meeting and you're just like, man, I'm just like, I'm irritated, that kind of thing. What are the things that, I would say, look, I want to give my best to this agent. They deserve my best no matter what type of day that I've had. How can do all those things that just happened translate into, my facial expressions from there? Or if I want to make sure that someone understands, look, this is a welcoming environment. Do I need to be like this? Right, never blink the whole time. Like, I guess what I'm asking is, what are the things that we can do to show, hey, I'm really interested in sitting down with you.
Yeah, how to put your best foot forward.
Yeah. Okay. If we've had some of those stresses coming to the meeting, that's a matter of choice how we present ourselves in the meeting. And obviously, some people are going to be really, really grumpy and the grouch or what have you, and it's not advisable unless you want to really test the person you're interviewing.
Right.
So we need to think beforehand about our intention before we go in. And even if that's just taking a minute in the car or going to the men's room before we come into the meeting and just calming ourselves down, taking a couple of deep breaths, even the cathartic breath to release the tension, and then be focused on why we're having the meeting. So it's not just in the meeting, it's why we're going in there, and the preparation to bring us into that place. And if our suit is messed up, if we've spilled coffee or whatever it may be, go in and say, look, I don't normally present like this, and apologies, but I'm here, and smile.
Right.
Remember to smile, because the smile is the big thing that tells them that you are welcoming them, that you're pleased to be in their company.
Yeah.
And that when the conversation starts, make sure you've prepared your questions, etc., but make sure you listen to their answers.
Yeah.
And if you need more information, do one of the things Chris Voss talks about, never split the difference.
Right.
One of the things he talks about is mirroring.
Yeah.
So if you need more information, use his mirroring technique, which is just repeat the last 2-3 words of whatever they've said as if it were a question, using the inflection to imply it's a question even without asking it, and shut up.
Right.
Give them that space to speak, because it reveals more about who they are, where they're really coming from, and because you want that information, but also because it's a very primary, such a primal human need that we need to feel we have been listened to.
Yep.
And if the broker, the client, the interviewee feels they have been listened to, they're going to be more engaging. They're going to reveal more anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. We talk about going 3 deep in the conversation in our podcast. And as a matter of fact, we just talked about it in the Sphere of Influence Challenge, which we do as well. And that's what we talked about. Once they've said something, no pun intended, right? But you have to take that at face value. You have to go deeper than that. Right.
Yeah.
You have to ask more than look at Ben.
Yeah.
I had to throw that in there.
I did. I had to. So, but you have to go deeper than that, because the example that we use, somebody says, yeah, I've got a new job in Houston, and you're like, oh, I'm super excited that you're going to Houston and everything. And if you don't ask that follow up, if you don't really listen and lean in, well, maybe they're not excited that they're taking a job in Houston, and you just said that you were excited that they're taking a job in Houston, and you want to help them hurry up and get to Houston, and they're not excited about it. And what you've basically said is, your misery helps me out, because you didn't go 3 deep in that conversation. So I love that. That's such a great example, and that's so cool that you're using the things in the conversation from what you're hearing about the face. And I got to point something else out, because not everybody's watching this on YouTube. Every time you say smile, you're using your hands to kind of show your whole face whenever you say smile. When you say the word smile, you're not just saying, smile, you're putting your hands up by your face to make sure that people know that it's important to use your entire face to smile. I know Ben picked up on that, because I don't use my entire face to smile.
I smile so much all the time. So I'm like an expert.
But I love that. That's so true. That's how my wife is, right? When my wife smiles, she just radiates, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a warm, super, comfortable feeling whenever someone does that. So I had to point that out, because I think it's so cool that you're explaining it that way, and you're using not just words to explain it, but you're also using your body language and your face to explain it. So that's super cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't want to cut you off, but I have an amazing question. And this is completely selfish, but I think it's going to help everybody if you know the answer. If you're like, hey, that's not my expertise, and whatever. We talk a lot about personalities, and we talk, there's the disc, there's true colors, there's strength finders, all these. Almost all personalities break down into 4 quadrants, right? And I'm just curious if you have background on personalities. I'll use DISC because it's the most common here. Do you find that people who, let's say, are a high D, their faces kind of have traits that are like, hey, this is a high D person, or same thing with I, or same thing with S? Like, Matt is a personality expert, and not necessarily from face standpoint, but he can talk to somebody for 30 seconds sometime, be like, okay, that person's a this, that person's that kind of thing. Is there a way, or at least some statistics in facial characteristics that you could say, man, I don't even have to hear one single word out of that person's face to know that they're a high this or a high that?
Yeah, I would say I have actually worked a fair bit with DISC in the past. And I'm mindful of useless information. So I'm fascinated by the idea that the guy who created DISC, William Marston, also created Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of those really strange, quirky things. But the Chinese system recognizes 8 primary personality types as revealed in the face shape. And then once you get into the individual features, we can narrow it down further. So I don't link it exactly with DISC, but I can bring it pretty close just from the pure observation standpoint.
Nice. And so is there tip-offs, like are drivers more the eyes, and are is expressives, are they more the mouth? Is it something like that, or is it the overall face?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixture, really. But for example, like my eyebrows are kind of arched down like so. So if you see that the eyebrows angled down towards the eye, the inner corner of the eye, or if they're like an inverted V shape, they tend to be definitely a more D. Okay. I'm not really a high D, but I've learned not to be, because it doesn't suit me in my interactions with people. Right. But definitely, if you see that eyebrow shape, it's more a D. Where if the eyes are big and round, naturally just big and round, then these are more probably more the eye people. Yeah. Because they're the people who are into relationship and connecting and just hanging out together and all of that. Whereas if the eyebrows are more straight across, and particularly if the eyes are a little bit narrower and the upper lip is thinner, then these are probably, they're more the C. Right. So there's definitely correlations there. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's really interesting. So I love all this stuff, and I love picking everybody's brains. I want to talk a little bit about your book, Face Facts, and let's say our audience is like, man, like this is really cool. I kind of want to learn more about this guy, a little bit more about what he does. Tell us a little bit about what's inside the book.
Okay. When I started writing the book, I had too much information. So I had to actually stop and scrap everything I'd written and just slim it right down. So it's actually a very small, compact, portable book, because I want it to be practical for people to carry with them and take out and use whenever they need it. But it's also, I want it to be very accessible. So it's got like 40 to 50 pages in it. And what I've done is I've given an image for an example of each of the 8 basic face shapes, and then I've gone through like 6 sets of forehead, 6 sets of eyebrows, 6 eyes, etc. Given a visual example of each of them, and then an explanation in terms of what it means in terms of communication. So you see somebody with any of those particular features, you know what the feature means.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's super.
Is that on Amazon? Is it on? Do you go to your website? Where do people get?
Yeah, that? If people prefer the Kindle version, it's on Amazon. But if you want a hard copy, you need to come to my website, and you can order a signed hard copy from me directly.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that website. Well, 2 things. I'll make sure that the Amazon link is in the description below, as well as his website, should you want a hard copy. That way, however you want to get it, you have access to it just below this video. So I know also, and again, I just want to talk about some of the things that you do, right? So you have I know that you also do like some online communication skills training, right? So tell us a little bit about what that is, and does that just mean like, hey, you're online teaching it, or you're talking about communicating online?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Typically what I've done, I've tended to do short courses partly because my boredom threshold can be a little low at times. So I prefer to just get in and do short, sharp bursts. So typically what it is, what that would be 6, maybe two bundles of 6 classes. I'm taking people through the basics. I'm not just using slides and images, but I'm using the people in the group for practical purposes, because it's easy to take an image of a famous person and talk about it, and people can say, oh yeah, you read that or what have you. But once you've got the live group in front of you and you don't know the people beforehand, if you're using that material and using my own as well, my own face as well, it makes it much more practical and accessible for people, and it's more real world. So it's easier for people to take it on board and then take it away and use it.
So helpful. So people go to your site for that too, if they want to sign up for that? Is that right?
Yeah, I don't have anything in the pipeline right now, but it'll probably be after the summer, but
Okay.
because I'm working with other clients, but yeah, there will be something happening.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Perfect. I'm going to put obviously your website in the description below. Also, I always put everyone's LinkedIn profile in the description too. That I know is a great way to get connected. And one of the ways that we got connected, I have to give some props out there, was through our good friend Scott Mason, who's absolutely just spectacular. And I wanted to thank Scott tremendously for connecting us.
So I love this, Joseph. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, but my apologies. Yeah, I mean, Scott is absolutely amazing guy. We've had some absolutely inspiring conversations, and he actually just sent me a photo. He's just actually given my book a 5-star review on Amazon. So I'm absolutely delighted and so grateful.
Yeah. But we're going to read it, and we'll do the same.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
I love what we've heard already. You've been spot on with both of us, and I can see how this would be just extremely helpful to anyone that's trying to improve their relationships with other people, let alone if it's recruiting or if it's, retention or helping agents be more productive, or helping the real estate agents in your office understand a little bit about how maybe they can read people's facial expressions to leverage better conversations with their clients. I mean, all the way around, this is just super helpful information. So Joseph, we really appreciate you sharing this with us.
Thank you so much. And one thing I do like to do is when somebody books a discovery call with me, I will guarantee them that they will get some insights about themselves from the call, even if they never do business with me.
Yeah.
So even if it's a short call, I would give them some insights into their own presentation and how they're coming across. So one way or another, they'll gain from the experience.
Yeah. So what's the easiest way for someone to schedule that discovery call?
Through the website.
Yep.
Through the website. And I'm always happy to connect on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. So I'm going to wrap this up and put a bow on it here, just like I usually do. But I have one personal question, right? So I'm going to pick you from a personal standpoint. My wife is right-hand dominant. If I ask her, can I buy another motorcycle? And she says no, but points at me with her left hand. That means she really doesn't mean it.
I can answer this one. Go buy the motorcycle.
Okay, gotcha.
We're going to tell her, Joseph. We're going to tell her you approved it.
Yeah. He's nodding his head, Jameis. He's saying yes.
And he's smiling with his entire face. So that clearly means it's time for motorcycle too.
Of course.
I love it. That's why it's three dudes hanging out.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Solidarity.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we're so grateful that you came on, and gosh, we could pick your brain for hours upon hours. So we definitely want to have, a follow-up conversation, down the road, and we'll have you on again. So guys, wherever you're listening to this, whether it be iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Deezer, any of those platforms, make sure you hit that follow button. If you're watching us on YouTube, you got a better experience with this one because there's a lot of things that you needed to see. So hit that red subscribe button, that bell right beside it, you get notified every time we drop a new episode. So no better time than the present. Then go to prospectboomerang.com. Check out all the cool things that Matt and I have to help you grow your brokerage, no matter what phase or stage of the business that you are in. Matt, we bring on amazing guests just like Joseph each and every week for one reason and one reason alone, and tell them why that is.
Because we just want to be part of your win.
See you guys.
See you guys.